Batgirl number 25. This was the delayed Batgirl issue. It was meant to come out at the end of last month. This is the anniversary issue. And by anniversary, all they really mean is 25 is an important number.
25.
So,
Yeah, it kind of does some fun stuff though with Babs's character. Although I think it would have hit better last month.
yeah.
You know,
I've actually noted down all the creators in this because there's so many. I'm just going to say them as we go through the stories.
and it's yeah, and it's not that it's seamless because you notice when there's a change, but
Well,
it's not like they're separate
yeah, I
stories.
wanted to talk
You
about
know,
this. This confused the shit out of me because
me too.
I started the book right, and the first story. Let me just get to this first title page.
It's
Right,
Bennett.
yeah, it's not Bennett. No,
It's not Bennett.
no,
Bennett's the second story.
it's
Uh,
Mairghread Scott writing
yeah,
it, and
Mairghread Scott.
Tom Dernick on art, right? And I was like,
Yeah,
okay, cool. This is the new writer on the run. I'm excited to
yeah.
see how she does, and I'll just up front. I think both her stories in this are pretty solid, and I'm looking forward to her run now. That's cool, right? But after like whatever it is, 8 pages, 10 pages, right? The
Yeah.
story keeps going, but the art looks changed all of a sudden, and I went, "Oh, that's weird. They only credited one artist on this. Why is it changed? Because it was still the same story." And I was like, "Why
Yeah.
is it changed?" And then I got to like a page at the end of the story, and it was like, "Oh, this was by Bennett and another artist," and I'm like, "Wait, so they actually continued the same story,
Amazing. Yeah.
but." So it's they kind of treated it as two separate stories, but it actually follows on. Like it's literally later the same night. It follows
Hmm.
right on from the previous. And I feel like usually with these types of issues where they have multiple stories, or it's an annual and they have multiple stories, typically you'll just have separate stories. Whereas this one kind of treats it like no, it's like the first two are just one big story that's just kind of halved, and then there's a story on its own that's setting up the thing. But even that's like a week later, it's still kind of tied into.
Hmm.
It's only the last one that's kind of separate. The Paul Dini one at the end is the only one that
Yeah.
feels like a random. I don't want to say out of continuity, but just a random
No.
story from elsewhere.
Yeah. It doesn't fit
So
with the theme that's going on here, whereas Bab's having issues because she lost someone that she was trying to save, and you
yeah,
come to find out that it's not what we think. Whereas she had showed up, Scarecrow was attacking this museum.
yeah,
There were
and
kids there,
yeah,
um, and this guy went out of his way to save the kids, and he worked with Batgirl, and you think, oh well, then Scarecrow showed up and killed him, and it's like, oh
no.
no,
I'll
it
actually
turned.
like this neat little connective twist
Yeah,
here.
me too.
It turns out this guy she saved was actually he lived for another like what 9, 11 months, whatever it was, and then
Mhm.
died on his wedding day. And you see the page, and it's the guy that Joker killed in the church from Batman
Yep.
48. And I'm
Oh,
like, damn, that is it's a cool little connection, but it really
yep.
affected. Well, I don't know if I say it really affected me,
Yeah.
but it worked
No,
because all of a sudden it's like you just took because I mean that scene in Batman was really effective because Joker's being nuts and
yeah.
this poor innocent person's getting killed. But
But now, but now you put a face to this and what he did, and
yeah, now he's a
he
person,
was making
and
he was making Gotham a better place through teaching these kids and art
here's the
and
thing, Matt. I don't think this is effective if it started with that. See, if the story started
no,
with this is the guy that Joker killed, let us tell you
yeah,
about him, it wouldn't work as much. But because
no,
they tell us about him, they get us to know him, we understand who he is, we come to respect him because of what he does try to save the kids. We get the Batgirl like sees him as kind of a hero in his own right,
yeah,
and then you tell us this is the guy Joker just shot, without mercy,
yeah,
and it's like shit. That's that's
no,
that's the trick
because
here. The Joker
we're familiar
reveal
with these.
the Joker
Yeah,
reveal has to come at the end of the story, or after
yeah,
enough of it that we already know who he is. I think that is the why this works so well. This little reveal.
yeah. Well, because we're so used to these types of stories in superhero comics, where it's like, oh, it's the one person I could have saved, and that's where you think that this is going, and then when you find out that it had nothing to do with that day, she was at the museum, and you're like, oh, okay, well, so she's been following up on this guy, and then you find out it was the wedding that the Joker terrorized, and it hits even more.
Yeah,
So
because obviously the randomness of the Joker is always affecting, but this retroactively makes that an even better issue. It's weird,
yeah,
and it didn't have to. I don't feel like this was forced
no,
on Scott to put this
no.
in. I think this was just, oh, this is a neat way of making this death feel even more
Well,
important.
well, shows that Gotham is kind of a small place. For as big of a city as it is,
Yeah,
you're never free of the influence of the Batman villains. You know, because one day it's going to be Scarecrow,
and plus
and then
it
your
also
wedding day it's going to be Joker. You know?
plus it also adds in this idea of Because the whole thing with Batgirl here is she feels this weird pain because she went through all this to help and save him, and he like was a bit of a hero and she come to like him for that. But she went through all this effort to save them and try and save how many she could on that day the Scarecrow attacked, and she feels this weird sense of not quite guilt but helplessness that he ended up dying anyway. That within a year somehow he get killed randomly anyway, and it's supposed to feel random and. Having it be like the Joker's random attack actually helps that as part of the thematic point, because the Joker is such a random character who just kills anyone. So the idea that who he just picked at random happened to be this person that was already saved by Batgirl, and that makes her feel like shit because it feels like it was worthless. And obviously the story here is that she's at the funeral, she's hiding up in the back of the funeral, and the mother of the victim sees her, and she comes out to talk to her. And has a heart to heart and talks to her about no, it was worth it. Like I got 11 more months with my son. He found love. Like this was not worthless. So go out, have a good cry, and get back and do what you do because, she gives him the pep or give her the pep talk. And I thought this was a really effective little story that used like a nameless character from a good moment in another comic, but otherwise nameless. And turned it into like a really neat little story for Batgirl. I thought that was really smart.
I thought so too. And then it transitions weirdly. This is my biggest problem, to her and Dick meeting at a hotel room it's not any hotel room.
Well, it doesn't transition weirdly. It's only weird because the art changes all of a sudden.
Yeah, but they could have done another title page where she's at the hotel, but it goes mid-story,
Yeah, that's the weird thing here. If they just gave me another title page to know that we'd switched to a new writer and artist, and it was continuing the story, that'd be fine. It was just really weird how I just turned the page and it's like, well, this art's weird, but we're still continuing this story. Yep. I did enjoy this part as well. This was Dick and Babs in a hotel room, and it's like, oh well, this was meant to be the honeymoon suite for Bruce and Selena. We might as well use it because at the end of the first story, she calls Dick and says, "Hey, I need a shoulder to lean on. Can you come?" And ultimately, they're kind of talking about could they not necessarily them together, but could they ever get married? What do they envision? He's these dreams of this Honolulu wedding and on the beach, and he wants this peace and quiet, and she also wants peace and quiet, but she just wants peace and quiet on a Sunday morning. She wants to wake up next to someone, and that's like what she's shooting for at the moment. And it's this really kind of sweet ending where they're kind of lying there together, and the narration says, I don't really necessarily need someone to be there all the time, but I need someone to always come when I need them, and Dick is that guy. Dick always comes.
Of course.
But yeah, sweet. That was good.
Yeah, no, but it goes in. I like how this Batgirl run, Dick's popped in a couple times. You had the stuff with the Penguin's son, and then you had the whole summer, or that lost year, with all of that. So he feels like a supporting character in this book, and it's this nice little bittersweet. We'll probably never get the storybook ending, but this is close enough.
Yeah,
I know
that this worked as a real thing. Now they've got an ongoing thing. We may not be seeing it all the time, but there's something there. Also, I like the dig about Barbara's kind of joking about it's not like I necessarily have the dream of the down payment and the little cottage with the white picket fence, and he's like, down payment, we're millennials, we'll be renting our coffins.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Yeah, that's solid.
Yeah, so and then that was the honeymoon suite that was meant for Bruce and Selena, which I thought was a nice touch. Still open. So yeah, my only, again, that section of the book, my only problem with it is that it's actually two stories they try to pass off as one. So.
I would almost say it's the opposite problem. I think it's one story they try and pass off as two. If that makes sense?
Well, yeah, I mean, the same thing, but you know what I mean?
I don't know. Yeah, the only problem we have here really is that it doesn't make it clear that we're switching over to a new team.
There's no transition.
And it does follow on. The story follows on. She calls Dick and says at the end of the first one, says, "Hey, can you come over and give me a shoulder to lean on?" And then it cuts to them in the hotel suite later that same night. It flows perfectly. It's just wait. why is the art changed? And it's like, oh, that was a different
Yeah,
story.
a completely different team.
But
So
still good, and
yeah,
it actually works. Like the story's still good.
yeah,
I don't think it's as great as the. I mean, I think obviously it's touching my Dick Bab's heart a little bit, but
yeah,
the first story's so good that and which is good
yeah,
because she's writing the run. That's just going to be her book now going forward.
yeah.
It's
And
Scott.
it's well, and the second part is just a decompression of everything. It's
Mm.
her being able just to talk and bounce stuff off of Dick and stuff. So I like them both. I think I preferred the art in the second section more than the first. So
Bouncing off of Dick. Yes, that's what you
yeah.
said. I'm sure there was. I mean, all they just wanted to nap together, but I mean, yeah, they might have been bouncing later.
Uh, hey, whatever they want to do, they're both consenting adults.
So then a week later, we have another story. It goes back to Scott, which is interesting. It goes back to Scott
Mm-hmm.
And Paul Pelletier for the art. And this is actually the story that sets up the actual arc that's going on. Grotesque has escaped and is going around. She's looking for him, and she's hacked into the security systems for the private security stuff. And it's led her to this rich person's house. And she finds the dead bodies and the blood. It's like an art display. It's one of these serial killers. Your Hannibal style kind of. I'm going to put on a display, and she ends up finding him and give him a bit of chase, and realizes he's going back to Gotham, and that leads us Batgirl back to Gotham, and that's what we're going to do. It's a solid enough little story. It's more of a tease, this one, and you get.
Yeah.
I like the idea of Grotesque as a villain, so that kind of works. Much more violent than before.
I'm trying to remember where I remember seeing Grotesque.
New 52, I think.
I feel right. It was during the
Simone.
what's her name? Simone run. Yeah. Okay.
I don't think it was as extreme during that run. I think he's went up a notch to this. But
yeah, definitely. He was definitely more of like a gentleman thief.
Yeah.
Here now he's a full on murderer.
Yeah.
So.
And it's interesting.
Yeah.
He only steals one piece of art. Like this house has tons of art all over it, but he just steals the one. He just takes the one.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what I'm digging about her stories actually. Between the first one and this one, and it really made me think of video games a little bit, specifically the Batman video games, or even something like Witcher, or any game that's got like a detective vision. When she goes into a room where there's been it's in the first story, it's when she goes into the room where all the kids have been like sealing off the room, and then this one is when she goes into the bedroom. There's like little notes, and it's kind of still narration. It's still kind of her thoughts, but it's in a different color, and it's like labeling parts of the scene, the crime scene.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, so over here someone tried to put closed it at the bottom of the door. Over here someone's broken the window. Like it's like it's labeling all the little details in the crime scene because that's how her mind works. I actually really like that. It's a really simple little touch, but I thought that worked.
No, it does. Yeah, I'm going back at it now. I noticed it when I first read it, but I forgot until you just mentioned it. But no, yeah.
So the little styles, it's almost like a Sherlock-esque kind of vision where these little details have been labeled around the
pop
panel.
up.
And it would obviously get tiring if it was like all over the place, but I think it's neat that just the one or two main pages where she goes into like a crime scene, it's like, okay, here's all the things. I like that. That was a neat little touch, and obviously again she's going to be the writer going forward, so this will probably be a thing for a while in the run. So I'm cool with that. I'm down. So that just leaves the Denny story to get into. Which I'm surprised to say this, but I actually think this was the weakest one of the book.
Yeah, it was weird. I felt like it would have belonged in an annual just as a filler. So, but it also felt like it would have been a cool episode of Batman the Animated Series.
But yeah, so it's a story where not Mad Hatter, we have March Harriet. Yeah, has a lady friend who is trying to come back, and most of the issue is actually her. She's actually giving herself up. And she's telling Batgirl the story of why she wants revenge on this business guy, and it turned out she fell for this girl when she first moved here, and she ended up dead when they tried to steal from him, and this is why she wanted revenge. And then the sort of twist at the end, it's very Saw 2. She's actually locked the guy inside the safe and was wanting to suffocate, but Batgirl figures it out, of course. And I couldn't help but feel like, don't tell Batgirl your story. She's going to figure out whatever you're doing. You're just giving her details. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Stop it a fool.
But she wanted to be caught, it's fine.
And then, of course, she ends up escaping police custody, and Batgirl goes chasing, and that's kind of the end. There's not a whole lot to it. It's fine, it's not bad, but after I feel like the first story had a really good emotional impact, The second one was a really nice sort of breather and had the Dick Bab stuff. The setup for the main arc was kind of like, oh, okay, we've got this really bad serial killer and Babs has to like be proper detective. Like they all had their own hook, whereas this one I felt like was like, oh, it was a fine filler story, but it wasn't something I felt needed, you know, like
Yeah, I like Danny, but yeah, like I said, it's a filler. Like I don't need it per se. So
that said, like
it was fine.
out of 4 stories, I really like 3 of them. Like I outright loved them actually in most cases, and then there's one that's just it's fine. That's not bad. That's not bad going for one of these bigger issues.
Yeah.
So
I like the idea of March Harriet. Like that was a really cool idea, especially with the Wonderland and whatnot. So, but yeah, I mean, the art, Paul Pelletier, I like Pelletier a lot.
Was it Pelletier getting that last one?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, cool.
So.
Wait, are you sure?
I believe so.
I think it was. No, I think it was. Was it not? Was.
Hold on, I'm checking.
I'm sure it was something. Cause I remember looking at it and thinking.
Oh no, Paul Pelletier was the one before.
Yeah, it's Lupacino.
It's Lupacino. That's why I liked it so much. Yeah. So. Yeah. No, Pelletier was the one right before it with Grotesque, and that's who's gonna be. Which I like that art though too. So.
Oh yeah, me too. I mean, admittedly, the last story probably has the best art, but is the worst story. So trade off, I guess. But I really like Batgirl issue 25. Like I was really into the vast majority of it, and I'm excited for the new run now. I was almost thinking, Larson's run ended. We're starting a new run. Like, like is it going to go downhill? Is this something that can be cut? And I'm reading this and I'm like, nah, I'm into this. Like this is solid.
Yeah.
We seem to be on fire. If anything, Larson's got some competition here. But this might not be as cut and dry as I thought it was going to be. Which is good. So, what are you rating it, Matt? What are you giving Batgirl 2025?
Man, so you have to take in the different stories to account, right? So there's one that was weak. So, man, this one's tough. You go first, and I'll base it off of that, because I could go two ways.
Yeah, I'm going to go with a 9. Like I like as much as I didn't like the last one as much. Like I think the first 3, and specifically the fact that they're the ones leading into the new run and the emotional impact of that first story. Like 9 out of 10 for me.
Yeah, so then I'll go with an 8.
If anything, my only complaints about the stories that I did like was that I maybe didn't love the art as much as I would have liked. Like I thought there was a couple of weird facial expressions here or there. Especially in the first story, which it was probably the best story, but it did have maybe the weakest art of the bunch. Just in facing stuff, but it wasn't terrible by any means. It was just wasn't popping. It wasn't like I'm excited.